Welcome to the Andy Dare Show. This is episode 58. This week I'm joined by Lou Hinkhouse. He's the creator of the award-winning television show Pulse, which aired from 1986 to 1991 all over Chicagoland. We talk about his early days with the nascent alternative music scene of Chicago. Thank you so much for listening. Hey everybody, thank you so much for checking out the Andy Dare Show as usual. But today we got our episode 58. I'm joined by Lou Hinkhouse, and he's the creator of the TV show Pulse, which was a cable access music show that aired from 1986 to 1991. And throughout those 5 years, he managed to have some awesome bands on his show. And way back when, he had Smashing Pumpkins, early Nine Inch Nails, early Jane's Addiction, Material Issue. So, of course, the guy is just full of awesome stories from the whole early days of Chicago alternative music. And it was a blast recording the episode. He was a totally nice guy. He has great stories about the Metro. And you really get a feel for the whole Chicago music scene. We went back and forth naming Chicago groups. I couldn't stump the guy. He's just got an encyclopedic knowledge about the whole Chicago scene. It's a great interview. Please stay tuned. But before I get into the meat of it, I want to bring up my awesome sponsors. First up, we got Uncle Bub's award-winning barbecue in Westmont, Illinois. They are a family-owned and operated business since 1997. It's a family-friendly restaurant located in Westmont, Illinois. But people also don't know that it's completely a full-service catering company as well. And they've been having quite a success the last couple years, even engaging in weddings, doing pig roasts, luau's, corporate events, company picnics, backyard barbecues, you name it, they'll do it. And they have quite a staff. They have quite a large amount of instruments to help bring this a good time to your party, as in smokers, grills, the whole 9 yards. Catering group is always there to please the customer, and they will bend over backwards to make sure that the party goes on without a hitch. And do check them out on the internet. They're UncleBubs.com. They have all sorts of menus there, catering menus, dine-in menus. If you have any questions, though, why not give them a call? It's 630-493-9000. And they have quite a friendly staff that'll answer any question you have. So if you're having a party this fall, why not choose Uncle Bub's Barbecue to just make sure it's a party that your guests will never forget? And if you're in the Westmont area, the western suburbs of Chicago, check them out. It's 132 South Cass, Westmont, Illinois. And tell them the Andy Dare Show sent you for specials and offers. And by Secondhand Mall, also in Westmont, Illinois, located at 309 West Ogden Avenue. Yes, my record store of 28 years. Remember when Records sold out all their inventory to the next door Secondhand Mall. And the Secondhand Mall actually moved into the old facility that Remember When Records was in. So, and they even have the old phone number, too, 630-936-1957, which is when the old owner, Hank, he got his first 45 in 1957, so he made that his phone number. He really is my godfather. He's taught so much to me over the years. It was sad to see him go, but at the same time, it was like a rebirth. I was glad to see that it didn't turn into a bank. That's what I always say. So, Secondhand Mall, check it out. Besides the huge vinyl selection and CDs and videos, they also have power tools, music instruments, vintage music instruments, video games, computers, electronics, all sorts of cool stuff. Do check it out. They're at 309 West Ogden Avenue. You can give the whole store a call. That's 630-810-9980. And check them out on the web. That's secondhandmall.com, 2ndhandmall.com. And they buy, sell, trade. So if you're looking to turn that stack of CDs that's been sitting in your closet for years into a little spending cash, why not take them over to Secondhand Mall in the western suburbs of Chicago? And by the Man Grate, a premium chunk of Detroit steel that fits right on your existing chintzy grill grate that comes with your grill. I really don't understand why people will spend, $500, $800 on a nice new grill, and then they give you this coat hanger-esque grate that goes over the grill. what you're doing with that is you're really cooking with the heat instead of, the convection that goes through the metal. And with this chunky man grate, you will instantly achieve steakhouse, burgers, fish, chicken, you name it. And you'll get those dark grill marks that look like they came right out of a steakhouse. And impress your family and friends by getting the man grate. Click through the banner on my website, The Andy Dare Show, to say, hey, Andy, we support your show. We want to get those nice grill marks on our burgers, too. Why not kill two birds with one stone and order through the banner on our website? It's right on the right-hand side of the page. You can't miss it. Bright as day. That is the man grate. All right, and I'd like to introduce a new sponsor for the fall season. I'm not going to really get into it too much, but I thought for the first mention, I'd just give them a quick shout-out. The Frugal Muse. June of this summer, I actually went to go see Matt Walsh tape his Bear Down podcast over at the Frugal Muse. And while I was waiting for Matt to show up, I just went through all the CDs, and they have quite a selection. Went through all the books, quite a selection. Great prices for even new books. You'd be really surprised. They totally blow, Barnes and Borders. I mean, they're not even competition anymore, but they really blow the competition away. Not to mention they got a really nice, friendly staff. They got a nice owner named Paul. And, the Frugal Muse. It is located at 7511 Lamont Road in Darien, Illinois. Give them a call. They also buy, sell, and trade. That's at 630-427-1140. And if you want more information, check them out on the web. That's frugalmusebooks.com. Yeah, it's really cool getting a new sponsor. We've had a long time with the existing 3 sponsors we've had, and I'd just like to have a new face on the Andy Dare Show. As they say, it's 7,000 square feet of browsing bliss. All right, that's about it for the sponsors for this week. Just like to thank all the sponsors, obviously. And we still are accepting new sponsors until the 1st of September. So if you want to get your business or your show or your band or whatever, if you want to get a little shine on the Andy Dare Show, why don't you send me a message at my email. That's andydare@hotmail.com. ANDYDERER@hotmail.com. All right, well, we might as well just get into it. I guess this really is the last new episode of the year. Next week, I'm going to be doing the best of my sideshow called Smooth Operators with Tyler Kale. And I think I'm just going to put the 3 existing episodes we have and just mash them together and put them out as my episode 59 next week. Had a great time vacationing up in New Buffalo this week, so I haven't had time, doing a new episode. I figure 58, this one with Lou Hinkhouse. I wanted to end the season on a really good alternative Chicago music note, and I think we delivered that with aplomb. Lou is a really great guy. Check them out. That's youtube.com/ThePulseChicago. And they got cool videos on there. They have quite a lineage of history. Learn a lot going there. And I learned a whole lot about their show, or the show and whatnot. And check them out on the recent Pieces Iscariot reissue box set from the Smashing Pumpkins. You can see the Smashing Pumpkins, that was weird. But their whole set from 1988 in the Pulse Basement Jam set there. So it's really cool to see Billy Corgan back in 88 just really throwing it down. They were new, bright, fresh-faced kids, but you could tell they were going places. And, it's a great interview. I want to thank Lou from the bottom of my heart for taking time out. I want to thank all the listeners, guests, sponsors, you name it. Can't wait for this new season starting September 8th. And I want to thank the UP Music Scene podcast who had me as a guest last week. Do follow them on Twitter. That's the UP Music Scene, at the UP Music Scene. I guess that's the Twitter handle. They got a great show. It's an interesting talk about the Northwoods, music, my show, what I'm into. I want to thank Dan for recording that episode with me. So without further ado, my episode 58 with special guest, Lou Hinkhouse. You're on the Andy Dare Show. How's it going, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good, actually. Just doing a bunch of recordings this morning. Looks like there's a big storm about to hit. I'm kind of sweating in my sweat box with all the windows closed. So, and you're downtown, right?
Yep, I'm downtown Chicago. It doesn't look that bad yet.
Nice. We'll probably obviously get it first, and then you'll get it in about 15 minutes. But, yeah, how's the summer going with the big Pieces of Scary at reissue box?
It's going great. You know, I met with Billy. We interviewed Billy with Bob Surratt actually about a month ago at his secret complex where he has his recording studio, and we got a sneak preview of the new album Oceana about a couple weeks before that.
Sweet.
And we were pretty blown away. And the key is he's using like really analog. He's got like this gear. He's really like a collector of the finest gear in the world. He's got like the audio board from the Wall and don't quote me on that because but it's like an Abbey Road gear and the synthesizer used on this Beatles track or I don't know. I'm not quoting specific songs, but there really is some of these boards have these big knobs that you turn like with two hands and that's the sound you hear in that new album is like really, really like to me it sounds like a classic Beatles or Pink Floyd sound with the guitars and the.
Sure, the sounds are so warm. They're not like this cold compressed, Pro Tools sound that we're used to nowadays. It's a throwback.
Exactly. The drums and the guitars and everything. His vocals sound really good. And the funny thing I was talking to Billy a little bit was that when that originally him and I were going to do a commentary track for that DVD, and then he got too wrapped up with the new album and tour. But I went back to prepare for that. I went back and watched the DVD and took notes on the and it was for the Pulse TV show for my cable show. We taped it in '89, and it's in Roselle Music's basement. And so he released a DVD with all the false starts and everything. A few times there's false starts.
Yeah.
And I was really kind of amazed at that phase, and that Pulse taping is a totally unique phase for the Pumpkins because it's right in between the drum machine days and before Jimmy Chamberlain really developed their sound. So it's like when they first got Chamberlain. So it's more
he sort of held back or reserved a little bit, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, well, he doesn't like what happened was when they hunkered down and wrote new songs with Chamberlain, Billy all of a sudden realized his inner rock god. That before that he was more of a moody, Robert Smith. He was a romantic. So that stuff on Pisces Scary at that DVD, the Roselle Music stuff, is very like I said, New Order or The Cure, very dreamy. He plays the ebo a lot, which is so cool. And I talked to him, I said, your vocals are the dynamic that drives the song in that earlier stuff, because in the later stuff, once he got Jimmy, he developed his inner Ozzy Osbourne screaming that he never did on this stuff, and he would go to the scream like he would go to the Banshee that was a dynamic he developed with Jimmy, was that soft to loud. And even in those days when they start playing live more and more at Metro, they would take it down, and Metro would get dark pitch black. They'd want the lights off, and they would get quiet.
Really?
And you could just hear Darcy, and they're kind of noodling, also like it explode. And that was their kind of what they developed. They would almost lull the crowd into a dream, and then just explode with sound. And they'd do the whole show like that. They would build songs, and that's with I Am One and Siva and those songs on Gish are just starting to explore that stuff,
Sure, it seems like they both upped the ante for each other, kind of like when Jimmy started rocking harder, then Corgan kind of slipped into that, the arena rock banshee wail that he would perfect, on later albums. And then Jimmy just kept getting louder and heavier, and kind of like they started off being kind of, a black nail polish band and moved into kind of almost like a Zeppelin for the 90s a little bit,
Exactly. That's what I would call them. And I told Billy, I said, who your voice reminds, Billy's voice reminds me of Bob Marley's voice. And it's weird, and the reason I say that is because they have a timbre in their voice, even if they just talk, that'll cut through. Like if you were in the Allstate Arena and Billy was somewhere in the corner just talking, like all of a sudden you'd hear like, is that Billy Corgan? Just the timbre of his voice cuts through.
Sure.
And Bob Marley had that too. That's where Bob Marley was not really going to be the lead singer originally, but the producers said, who's that guy? Whose voice is that? That's the one cutting through. He's going to be the singer. And that's the way Billy's got a voice that just it's just the timbre of his voice, tonality of that voice that cuts through a mix that I think makes him. And people, I think, some people say, well, Billy can't. Oh, he's not good at singers. Yeah, I think the thing about Billy, he's a fantastic vocalist. He's like a Nina Simone, or like I said, a Bob Marley, or where he uses his voice he's a vocalist, or even a Dylan, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
Or Mick Jagger. I mean, they're not great singers. They're fantastic vocalists, and they're using their voice, you know, as an instrument, as a performance instrument.
It's very true with like the Dylan metaphor, because he would never be considered a good singer classically, but some of the best, you know, use of a voice that you could imagine. And Billy's got the same thing going on. I guess like when he having like a speaking conversation, it kind of sounds like Smashing Pumpkins for some weird reason.
Exactly. And like I said, you can hear him from across the room. You can just identify that voice. And I think that because you think of so many bands that don't make it, and I think that's part of a.
You need to have the good singer, the good front man. If you don't have a good front man, everybody else is great. That's not going to make it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went to go see him do a poetry read in 2003, I think, at the Art Institute, and same thing. It kind of sounded like Smashing Pumpkins, you know, outtakes, even though he was just reading poetry. Kind of.
Oh, you went to one of those?
Yeah, I went to one of them at Art Institute. It was kind of funny because he awkwardly spilled all of his papers off the stand and had to, like, you know, spend a minute and a half picking up all of his papers on the stage.
Yeah.
He was kind of blushing at that point, but yeah, it was good stuff. And he's a singular voice, very, very important for any band that wants to, you know, have legs and keep going, you know, 25 years later.
I can tell you an inside story about that era was that he was working on a project called Chicago Songs right about that time. And it's all acoustic.
I was there. I was at the recording, to be honest. Yeah.
Did you see some of that? Oh, you were one of the ones at the chapel?
I was one of the ones at the chapel. Yep.
Yeah.
Got an autograph, and that was just those songs are crazy awesome. I don't know how they could not even be used for anything.
Yep. I was able to see all the footage and actually did an edit on the we did two edits. We did one on just the chapel days. There was 4 or 5 chapels sessions at the chapel that we cut together from 4 cameras, and then there's like months of him writing in the studio. That's pretty amazing. Him at work, just all in acoustic, which is just. And then you talk about his voice. He used his voice all soft, you know, like more like a Nick Drake type thing.
Sure.
And yeah, you're right. I really wish that those songs would come out, and they may still come out. I think that's something that down the line. May hopefully will come out.
Oh, I guess through like the line of reissues, maybe that could find new life as like the outtakes for what was that? I guess that was Swan era, or that was Future Embrace era.
I think it was right before Swan.
Yeah, it was.
I think it was right before Swan, and it was. I think originally. I know he was talking about originally releasing them like 78s or something like. I think it'd be a cool thing to do, like just cassette only release nowadays or something. Do it like a bootleg almost.
Speaking of, I love that reproduction of the demo cassette. That's just them going the extra, yard to really make this box set something that you'll pass on to your kids. I mean, a reproduction of the demo tape. And talking about that, you actually got one of the real ones back in what, 88?
Yeah, 89.
Still got it?
That was the funny thing is I still have it. And the funny thing is that at that time I had my cable show. Everybody sent in cassettes, and we would listen, about 3 or 4 of the key people, which Ken Dabeck, if you're out if you need a good recording engineer, he still does. He has a studio, West End Recording, and he's out in the Schaumburg area.
Oh, nice.
He records bands, and he was our audio guy, and a few other key people that we'd listen and judge, what bands to book for. The main thing was Basement Jam for new bands, And so that tape came in, And we were like, oh, that. And the funny thing was that everybody in the meeting was like, now this is the standard. This is the kind of tape we need. We can't be settling for this. And so the Smashing Pumpkins cassette, little did they know, that is the greatest band ever to come from Chicago. That is gonna be like, no, come on, they can't be any less than this. Because we used to always try to up our game. We were always trying to make our show better, and we judge everything by, even our on-camera reporters or whoever it was. We'd always say, okay, we got to step up. We're always trying to step up, and we did win 3 Ace Awards actually 3 National Ace Awards. We used to beat out every year Austin City Limits, which is still on the air. I know, and they used to be so mad. They're like, "Who is this show, The Pulse?" But I thought it was hilarious that my buddies were they were bugging me like, "Come on, dude, they got to be this good." It's like, yeah.
So how long did Pulse go for? What years?
Yeah, Pulse. We had the Pumpkins on twice, and the first time was '89. The second time was '91, which was our last year, and it was on for 5 years. So we started in '86, and then we started out. The Pulse there was always a half-hour show. It was a weekly half-hour show. We started out, and then we would just do 2 bands per half hour. And the very first Pulse had the Elvis Brothers on it. We had a really cool segment with them.
Nice.
And then that got to be too hard. Then we started doing more of a magazine format with shorter features, and so we ended up with like 5 segments: a news segment, a radio, like a media segment that was like radio stations and stuff like that, like Cards Radio or whatever. And then we'd do a feature on. Then we had the Basement Jam, which is new bands. So the Pumpkins were on that. And then we had a performance segment that was usually on Metro. So the Pumpkins were on twice. They were in the basement for new bands, and then they came on again. And that video got released on the Gish reissue.
Oh, okay.
That's Gish era.
That's awesome. Like, how about a big band that was one of your first national acts? I mean, you said the Elvis Brothers. They're pretty Midwestern, right?
Yeah.
How about a big name early on?
Well, the band we had earlier, the biggest thing we had early on was Jimmy Cliff came on for a feature.
Oh, cool.
We went out to the Cubby Bear and interviewed him. I had a Chicago reggae promoter who was helping us, and so he got us Jimmy Cliff and Eka Mouse. Awesome. And then who else did we get? We had Killing Joke.
Whoa. And
we had Squeeze, and we had 9 Inch Nails. And these are all for features. These would be our known bands: Oingo Boingo, The Call. So they would come on and be our profile segment, and we'd interview them and show their videos as B-roll. And then so that was international bands. And then the local bands were the Basement Jam, and then the Performance once in a while would be a national band, but I think it was almost always local bands that we had in the Performance.
How about Trent Reznor? What kind of guy was he back in those days?
He was cool, man. He was a cool guy. Yeah, he was very cool. He gave us a real good interview. I mean, he talked about the one thing he said that he seems like a mellow guy, and he says, yeah, I'm a mellow guy. I'm low energy. He goes, but when I get into my performance, he goes, you know what? By the end of it, I am ready to kill somebody. And he laughs about it. And he's laughing when he says it.
That's awesome, huh?
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys have kind of had a symbiotic relationship with the Metro.
Joe Shanahan.
You good friends with Joe, or?
Yep, we're dear friends with him.
30 years. That's pretty awesome, right?
I just I'm working with JBTV on doing like a doc to celebrate the 30th. And we're Collect JBTV is another show besides the Pulse, and Jerry Bryant. He's got all those archives and of his stuff. He has Radiohead. He has some good Pumpkin stuff.
Oh yeah.
And so we're gonna do a new interview with Joe. We did one already, and then I got Joe on. He was on the Fox morning show about a week ago, and he came on for an interview for that. And yeah, he's just Joe. It's amazing. I mean, to think of. I mean, you really can't have one without the other. You really can't have a Pumpkins making it without Joe Shanahan.
That's true. Yeah,
it wouldn't have happened. And Billy was smart enough to know how to to appreciate that and use Joe. What Joe has offered himself listening. He's like, listen, dudes, I And then the funny thing to think about is that Metro was only in business like 5 or 6 years when he booked the Pumpkins. And that, so he looked at the Pumpkins and he's like, I believe in you guys. You know, he went to Billy, and Billy was very serious, and Joe's a very serious guy. And some people, we've interviewed Joe, and we asked, and one time, one of the interviews we asked Joe was like, do you consider yourself a mentor to Billy? And he's right away, no. I mean, they are mutual artists. They're both artists.
Yeah.
And they're mutual appreciation. And they used each other, and they're friends. They're probably, the two closest, some of the closest people to Billy is Joe, probably. So I'm just happy to be part of that. I remember one meeting I had with Joe and Billy in Metro upstairs, and this goes to show how integral Joe was to the success of the band, was that we had the band on twice.
Mm-hmm.
And so Joe called me, and I used to talk to Joe to book bands and stuff. So Joe calls me and says, "Hey, come meet me in Metro, with Billy Corgan. We're gonna, want to talk about the band's future." And so I went and met. So three of us met up in Joe's office of Metro, and I brought he said, "Bring your." So I brought the cassettes that we had, the video cassettes, the VHS in those days, and we watched them and we made notes on what was the best part, what was the best songs of the Basement Jam and the performance. And they asked me, "Hey, can you cut a reel?" So I cut a demo reel that they gave to Virgin and Caroline. It was part of the whole. I mean, not to say that that was all of it, but it was part of the the courtship of the record deal.
I didn't know that the record, like that, Virgin was actually privy to the Basement Jam tapes way back when.
Don't quote me on that. But I know it was part. I know there were a bunch of labels. I won't say even just any one of those labels.
Sure.
But it was the labels that they were interested in at the time. They were part of the. I should be careful what I say because you're a journalist. But
don't worry.
But yeah,
hardly.
it was part of the sales package when they were pitching the band, was to say, and that was common in those days too, is to have a video, right?
Yeah.
So, it shows that they were very serious. They talked, and then the capper of that was that when they won their first MTV Music Awards, the Pumpkins and Billy came on and they asked, well, tell us about your break. And he said, we got some video breaks early on, and my buddy's like, he's talking about us. He's talking about us.
Nice.
I said, you know what? He probably is. He probably is talking about us because
cool.
It was Metro, and he talked about Joe and Metro too. But it was part of the in the symbiotic relationship that Joe has set up, and launched a bunch of other bands too. Like Smoking Popes and Rise Against and Urge Overkill and
Jesus Lizard and Albini and all that.
Yep. He's had so I think he's done more than just the Pumpkins, but I think the Pumpkins was like the obviously his crowning the crowning achievement of the club, and Billy never forgets that. Billy always comes back. He's always wants to play Metro, and so I really respect that. I really respect that in Billy and Joe. The loyal, those guys. I mean, talk about loyalty. I don't think you see that much in the music business of.
No, you
and
never.
Billy,
see
even with
that.
me, I mean, dealing with me and Joe, dealing with me. They call me. Actually, when Billy broke up the band in 2000, he called. He was looking around. He wanted to do. I wanted to do a TV special. By that point, I had lost touch with Billy. And when they get that big, you don't really. You can't really get a hold of bands, right?
He went to the West Coast around then, right?
He was but they're always touring and stuff, You can't really, when a band gets really big, I have other friends that are in bands, I know them, and they're big and on tour and stuff, and especially in those days, they didn't have cell phones or internet.
Sure.
You had to catch them, like when I used to book my show, you had to catch them at the hotel, like in Minneapolis before Chicago. You had to catch the road manager on the hotel phone.
You got to get lucky. Yeah.
That's the way it was in those days, and nowadays you could just text or email. It's amazingly different. So I lost touch with them, and then when he was breaking up the band. I was bugging my boss. I work at the local Fox TV station in Chicago, and I was bugging my boss. I said, "We got to do a special on Billy and this Pumpkins." And he wanted to do a special, but he was thinking of WGN because that's the Chicago station, But then I was able to contact Shanahan, and then he contacted Billy, and he said, "Gotta go, Lou. Lou's got the original footage." I said, "We gotta go with Lou." So I was able to reconnect with. That's when I reconnected with Billy, and I told him it was like a dream come true to reconnect with him because I always felt a closeness with him as an artist.
Sure.
I went to art school too, and Joe went to art school too. That's another. I think that's kind of a common theme. Is as an artist, he is really an artist. Have you ever talked to him?
No, I haven't. I mean, just like briefly at certain like events and stuff like that. But yeah, the guy keeps pushing himself, keeps making it uncomfortable for himself with the different situations he sets up for himself. It seems like, and that's a sign that he's not just wanting the easy way out, just to cash in. He's still trying to challenge himself. 25 years in? So.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something that it's very inspiring, actually, for somebody to come up in Chicagoland. That you're not looked upon as somebody that could make it on a public level, but he really opened the doors for Wilco and not that many other bands. But I mean, it was just really cool to see the hometown boy make good.
Yeah, I think that's the. I think that, and when you do talk to Billy, and anybody who. When you get a chance to talk to him, he's very approachable, very cool guy. He's pretty down to earth most times. Depending on what's going on at the very second, you never know how you're approaching someone, what they're actually thinking of at that moment. But he is an artist. He speaks on an artist level, and the reason I always felt very comfortable and really loved him for that was that I went to the Art Institute.
Nice.
And I took art appreciation where they have these interviews, profiles of great artists, great living modern artists, and they speak on a different level. Like they're speaking like you have to get into their level of the conversation, what they're talking about.
Sure.
Like when you talk to a guy like Billy, he's just on a different level. He sees the world on a more spiritual level or different level than. And he can speak like an average Joe. He can talk about traffic jam or the bad weather and stuff like that.
Sure.
But when you really get into talking with him, he's just an artist. He's just a total artist.
That's really cool. How about other people from Chicago, like bringing up the aforementioned Steve Albini? You guys, do you guys have any history? I mean, he had a bad rep preceding him before I did an interview with him, but he couldn't be any more different. He totally opened up his little studio to us and was really funny. That I wasn't expecting like a humorous, kind of down-to-earth guy. So. Yeah,
I've heard nothing but good things about him. Like you said, people thought he's a similar type guy, I guess, in a way that he's just who he is. Take him or leave him. He's not gonna. And Billy's like that too, in a way. But the weirdest thing about Billy is that he made it such an extreme showbiz level. Like he made it like as big as Tom Jones or something. But he's still this kind of
He was big as Justin Bieber in 1995.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and the common thread you could see between Billy and Albini is more of a Johnny Rotten type attitude of individuality and individual freedom and loyalty to their own true compass.
Sure, follow their own muse, kind of.
And that's the similarity I can see between Billy and like an Albini. But like I said, I've heard Albini is really cool from people that know him and worked with him.
Yeah, and he's quietly worked with like some of the most important musicians of the past 40 years. With he did one of the last Stooges albums, and worked with Iggy Pop, and then he's worked with Page and Plant, and then you name it from the independent rock scene.
Mojo did a great interview with. They did a great one with Billy too. They did a great interview with Albini, and he talks about all his great sessions. And
how about the opposite of Albini, Butch Vig?
Yeah, Butch Vig. I mean, I don't know him either, but a friend of mine is actually personal friends with him, and he's supposed to be just a really super guy.
They played the Metro last night. I couldn't make it, but yeah, I mean, he had that Smart Studios up in the like the North Woods, kind of different, and Yeah, found Nirvana and the Pumpkins. Not too bad of a and Urge Overkill. Not too bad of a mixture.
The inside story of Nirvana, Nevermind, was that Gish was just recorded there, and we used to have his Butch Vig's original band was first it was Spooner, then Firetown.
Yeah, I heard of those, but never heard them.
They're not bad. They're jangly. They're very REM-esque. They're very good. They're pop. I mean, they're actually great.
Cool.
But they're very like REM type pop. I love that stuff. And but they were not into the Pumpkin wall of sound. And Billy came in, and he's like, I want to do this layered guitar distortion. And Butch was, well, let's try it. So they did it, and Butch was like, holy cow, this is amazing. He was not used to doing it that way. So Billy kind of introduced Butch into that style. Then guess who the next band to come into Butch's studio was Nirvana. And Nirvana was not into the Nirvana was sloppy. Butch Kurt Cobain was no Billy Corgan. He's no Taskmaster. He was man. And so Butch said, listen, dude, we're going to give your guitar some power. I'm going to retrack them. Well, word is that they had to do some tricks because, like I said, Kurt Cobain was not going to sit like a Billy Corgan, for half a day in the studio doing the same tracks over and over. Kurt Cobain would get bored a lot quicker than Billy doing that kind of work.
Oh yeah.
So, but there was some trickery pulled to get that massive sound. But the sound you hear, the real sound that people credit to, like Nirvana. I mean, it's really Billy Corgan.
It's really
Billy
back
Corgan,
from Gish, yeah.
Yeah, it's really Gish that gave Butch Vig the idea to do it to Nirvana. Nirvana kind of got the credit more than they deserve for that.
And then you could say
sound.
Gish was kind of a more streamlined version of My Bloody Valentine's approach to layering guitars and the rock and roll shoegaze sound.
It was between that and Zeppelin.
Yeah,
it was Jimmy Page meets My Bloody Valentine, and I don't know if you're aware of this. I don't know if you're aware that Billy's dad is a rock star.
Actually, I'm not. I'm friends with his brother a little bit here and there, but I haven't really heard much about his father. No.
I got to interview Billy's dad. He's a real interesting character, and we interviewed some of the guys that play with Billy's dad, and they said Billy's dad was a true rock star. He was and Billy was born when his dad was only 17 when he had Billy. And Billy's dad was a guy that played lead guitar like Jimi Hendrix, a funky rhythm guitar, great harmony singer, and played with like early versions of Rufus and stuff like that. And his most famous band was a band called Crystal with a K, and I kind of remember that band being around Chicago. And one quote he gave us is that, yeah, man, we got our most gigs when we started buying our clothes at women's clothes store. It was like they were on the verge of the early glam rock. Crystal was one of the early glam rock bands. Yeah, so his dad was on the cusp, and so his dad was a real. In those days, the scene was a rough scene. In those days, he said that it was unusual to pack heat in your guitar case and stuff like that in Chicago. Chicago was a very rough city, in the suburbs. Like in the 70s, right when Billy was starting out in the glory days of the Pumpkins, that's when the city just had just exploded with a rock music scene with clubs.
Sure. Yeah.
Batteries Not Included and Metro and Avalon was awesome.
Lounge Acts.
And Lounge Acts. And Lounge Acts was a new kid in the block in those days.
Huh.
And there was a place called Thurston's, and so you had so many clubs you could play at that a band could play like once a week, and people would follow them. And the big show, like you'd play Metro once a month. A local band like Pumpkins or Material Issue or Urge Overkill, or there's other one like Nicholas Tremulous, and there's one called Dick Holiday.
Sure, yeah.
I got it.
Man, that's funny because I just been going through all those names: Nick Tremulous and Dick Holiday.
There was a bunch, and it was like such a. I mean, it was a pretty expansive scene because you had this high level. The highest level was like, and then Jesus Lizard came into that. So you had this level of the biggest hits, Big Black, and Naked Ray Gun was on the scene a little earlier. So you had this big Chicago scene of rock stars, And then you had the new bands coming out like Love and Addiction, and then Material Issue was one of the became one of the top bands. And Q Prime, Jeff Quantnitz was the big promoter now. He's a big Hollywood promoter. He's like
Really?
he's like Entourage. Yeah, he's like Ari.
Ari from Entourage.
He's like that kind of guy now in L.A. and he represents all the movie stars. He started out in Chicago. He started out in Metro.
Weird.
He had an office in Metro, and his first band was Material Issue. That was the first thing he managed was Material Issue, and to this day, when they have reunions and stuff, he sends a case of champagne. But the funny thing was that the Pumpkins were not in that. Pumpkins had Joe Shanahan, and Material Issue had Jeff Quantnitz, Q Prime.
Weird. 11th Dream Day, too, they were doing it?
They were a little bit... Well, the funny thing was before that, 11th Dream Day, Naked Ray Gun, then there was bands like Pez Band off Broadway. Cheap Trick was, not before that, but they were not in Chicago as much. They became national pretty fast.
You had your Shoes, right?
Shoes were the same thing. Shoes went national as soon as they broke out, and Shoes were like a little bit earlier. So that was when it was more of a suburban club scene, like Haymakers and Beginnings. And so Shoes, by the time they played Chicago, they played the punk club that was called Tuts. And I was at one of their shows, and all the punks are in there making fun of them, like.
They're squares.
And Shoes would go, "Hey, thanks a lot, man." They go, "Yeah, thanks a lot." And so the hardcore power pop and punk fans, it's almost like mods and rockers.
It's like Semisonic playing CBGBs.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It was in Chicago was just it was really a great scene that the Pumpkins burst out of. And people don't realize that
these kids
that
were paying their rent
too.
them. Yeah, they were able to make it and survive off of playing, couple shows a week. Now it's much harder. There's less clubs, there's less outlets, but then in the way it's easier to promote for these shows. So
it's harder though. They can only play one once every 2 months or so, or 3 months. You can play like a band coming out now. In those days, you could play, once a week at like this place, that place, this place. So if someone likes you, they're gonna. And young people, they'll go see a band. Nowadays, kids they go to dance clubs or something, but.
Now it's all about these knob twiddlers, your Dead Mouse, all these festivals and stuff. It's not the best way to hear music. The best way to hear music's in a little club. Thank you, Joe Shanahan, for my first show ever. That was at it, and all the best shows I've ever been to been at the Metro. I mean,
really?
Yeah, nobody can hold a candle to them. I mean, if you go to the Aragon, you go to the Riviera, I mean, you get sound issues. The Vic, you got sound issues. I saw Sonic Youth just like 2.5 years ago at the Vic. It was really cool, but it's just not the same feeling. You got people looking at their cell phones, and it's just not the same feeling as, the early 90s at least were kind of the end point for really having a rocking scene in Chicago.
Yeah, now the Metro has air conditioning, and now there's no smoking in there.
No smoking, yeah. You used to come home reeking of cigarettes.
Lounge acts. I've seen great shows at Lounge acts, but come on, acoustics and cramp. It was not a
tiny.
The Metro is it's usually can get a comfortable spot, and the sight lines and the sound and now they really and the lighting and stuff they've really been perfecting all that over the years. So the Metro, it is like a church. I mean, Joe was talking about. Jeff Buckley's show where he was getting it so quiet. He played so long. His last show was it's on tape too. You can buy the DVD of Jeff Buckley at Metro.
Really? Huh.
But at the end, he's getting really quiet in Grace. He's in this, and Joe went around to the bartenders and said, don't punch the cash register. Just take cash and make change, because he didn't want the ching ching. They were making sounds. They'll leave the drawers open. Make your change, but don't. He went around to all of them and told. How cool is that for an owner to be so aware of the art?
So hands-on and just being able to, see when greatness is taking place. Yeah.
And luckily there's cameras there to capture it.
That is so awesome. So how about your first show at the Metro? We talking pretty before the Pumpkins, after the Pumpkins?
I think my first show there was before the Pumpkins. I think it was Stray Cats, and Violent Femmes opened, or it was Stray Cats headliner, Violent Femmes, and then Lonnie Brooks, I think, opened. He had a blues act.
That's a diverse bill, right?
It was packed. It was jam packed.
That's awesome.
That was a great show. I mean, Stray Cats just ripped it up. It was really, it was like 100 degrees in there.
And it's true that REM was a big early booking for Joe, right?
Very first band.
That's
very
so
first.
Awesome.
Joe actually gave me the ad for the first show, and It wasn't even really called Metro yet. It was called Stages Presents. I think I got it right here. It wasn't even called Metro yet. I just put that. Let's see, where is it? But yeah, it wasn't even called. It was before they called it Metro.
How did he end up getting the space? Was it a club back in the day too, or?
You know, the original story of Metro, that was a men's. It was a men's. Like before they had health clubs, they had these hangout joints for men, and it was like a big steam bath. And I know people think, but you know, who knows if they had girls? But I think that was a big social thing. Like guys, it was like a country club.
It's actually like more of a gentleman thing than a gay thing. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it was not gay. You know, who knows? I don't think. But there were more of those than you think, like a Turkish bath type thing. You know.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But this one was more for like Germans or Swedes or something like that. It was like their social club.
Huh.
And so there was a bar in there, and then upstairs was a theater, which still is there.
Yeah, still there.
Beastie Boys played there, so it was a pretty massive place. And I was going to talk to Joe. I wanted to interview with him and see what places did you look at before you settled on that specific address, because obviously you picked the right one.
This was during the whole Wax Trax era, and I got to speak with Chris Connolly, you know, formerly of Ministry and Revolting Cocks and all,
I love him.
And current manager at Reckless Records, which I wasn't aware of, which was really cool. So it made it real easy to do an interview with him. He just invited us over to the Wicker Park store, and we just let the tapes run, you know.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And his autobiography is awesome too. He's got them for sale there. Really interesting, in-depth look at that crazy era of the 80s, early 90s.
Well, if you look at there's an interview. Actually, they played a tape actually at the Metro 30th party, and Julie Nash, the daughter of Danny Nash, spoke, and she says there would be no Metro without Wax Trax, there'd be no Wax Trax without Metro. And Joe tells a story that Metro was just opening, and then he heard about this really cool record store. He said the first day those guys went to that spot, Joe said like about 5 or 6 of the coolest Chicago dudes. He's one of them. He wouldn't use the word cool. I'll use the word cool. But they showed up and said, "What do we need to do, dude?" So he said he helped hand hammer the record bins and paint them black and stuff. Because they were just like, "We know this is the shit." And so then. That was the first place he sold tickets at. You had to go to Wax Trax to buy Metro tickets for the first 4 or 5 years. That's the only place he sold tickets at. Then he stayed independent. That's the thing about Joe. Their business relationship was, and I think the thing about Joe too is that I think he's very savvy, probably more savvy than the Wax Trax guys, and I think he helped them with that end of things too. Just talking and hanging out and talking about things. He's really sharp.
It's really intense how he knew how to play the game, like make friends early and often and maintain friends throughout the years. As you just said, there wouldn't be a Metro without Wax Trax. There wouldn't be a Metro or Pumpkins without Metro. So really, there wouldn't be Pumpkins without Wax Trax. Then you could lead there wouldn't be a Wax Trax without who knows? Everything seems like they're kind of intermingling in Chicago at this era, which I don't think they do as much nowadays. But at the same time, maybe everybody's intermingling on a national level, which could help down the line. I don't know. But it just seems like a totally singular, really cool scene to be any part of.
Yeah, the old Wax Trax, God, what a great place that was. And I'm sure they had a great impact on a young Billy Corgan. Billy worked in a different record store. But you could go in there and buy rock star clothes. You would listen and find records and hang out and talk to people about music. So I used to go there whenever I could. I was in high school. And we'd hang out, and yeah, it's an amazing place. It was just such a cool place. Like you were too young to go to a bar or a club, but that was just about the same as going to a really cool club.
I totally relate to it. I grew up in a record store myself, and I'm just 28. I was kind of like the end of the cusp of that whole generation. But it would be a place to hang out and not be in a rush. Just get recommendations. Shoot the shit about gossip, music gossip, whatever. It just. You never go to a Best Buy and want to get a recommendation from any of those nitwits. It's like this is definitely a different time when you could just enjoy going through the racks, taking your time, and discovering,
Now, if you want to know the places in Chicago that exist like that, there's one called Village Records on Roscoe. Wilbur, he's a guy that knows everything. He's been around. Shake, Rattle, and Reed, right next to right uptown on Lawrence, right
Nice.
next to the Green Mill.
Oh,
That
okay.
guy Rick Addy's the owner. He knows everything. He's a guy that's been around. He's been in bands.
I was supposed to Remember When Records on Westmont, Illinois, on Ogden Avenue. Kind of right by Downers Grove. Yeah, he did have like some interesting people come in. He was good friends with Jim Peterick of Survivor and Ides of March and stuff. So
What store's that?
Remember When Records. That's the
Oh,
one.
that closed.
Yeah.
It just closed.
Yeah, it just closed. It was my store.
Oh.
I worked there 3 years. I had been going since I was in a
Yeah,
stroller.
I like that place. I'd get there whenever I'd go there whenever I could. Find some gems there.
Yeah, but the funny thing I've been saying on my show is the guy sold all his inventory to a secondhand mall kind of shop. So
Yeah.
secondhand mall moved into that spot. So now they still have the records and CDs, but now they have like vintage musical equipment. They've got electronics and stuff like that. So I've taken them in as a sponsor, and I'm trying to spread the word about them. Like, hey, if you Remember
cool.
When, you should stop by, see what we got.
Oh yeah, well that's a good tip.
And I'm just glad it didn't turn into a bank, a Fifth Third Bank or something.
Yeah, no kidding. The other good stores, if I could, is a Dusty Groove, of course.
Oh, I love Dusty Groove. Yeah, Gramophone kind of fell off for me a little bit when it moved.
Yeah. But
and the Reckless chain, you can't go wrong. I still buy CDs.
Awesome.
I still love getting a $4.99 CD that I never had, trying to fill out my CD wall as I have it now. So
I only buy vinyl. I'm a vinyl snob now. I have 6,000 albums and probably about 5,000 CDs. I could have a radio station. I have all genres. I have 5 feet of just Bob Marley on CD, and I've got So I loved it, and I've been just digging vinyl and digitizing vinyl cuts, and doing vinyl. And I actually been talking to Joe about spending some time together. But anyway, I don't know. I think to me, CDs, they serve the purpose in that one era. But now I just hear such a difference in vinyl, and so I'm so glad bands like Pumpkins and stuff are releasing vinyl. Shoes have a new album coming out. They're releasing a vinyl, and that's another great album. That's a local Chicago band that is amazing. And the Pumpkins, it's so cool. They got the Pumpkins. They got Shoes, Material Issue.
It's the best way to hear it, for sure. I mean, I feel like if I started getting into vinyl, then there goes another, $10,000 that I don't have right now. But once I make that, then sure, I'll start building the vinyl library up.
And another great local artist is Serengeti. He's kind of a.
Is he a hip hop guy or?
Yeah, he's kind of a cool hip hop guy, but he's more like Beck a little bit. He's got a lot of humor. He's really everything he releases on vinyl. So I think. He's my favorite Chicago guy right now. There's a new artist called Jennifer Hall, who's a female singer. She's very cool, and she's got a great band. I'm trying to think of other great local Chicago bands that are releasing stuff now. But Phil Angotti, there's another guy that goes back to the Pumpkin era, is Phil Angotti. He's got a guitar shop, Avenue and Guitars on North Avenue, and he releases amazing records. Really Beatle-ish, very Beatle-esque. He's so talented. But and he's from that era. He was from the Pulse era with the Pumpkins and
cool
and Material Issue, and so yeah, it's so great to see that stuff from these guys. They just ain't gonna quit,
So Material Issue made it through Pulse.
Yeah, Material Issue's on the Pulse. Material Issue, Jim Ellison. Oh, I got Jim Ellison stories too. He refused to come on one time because one guy in one band because we used to have 3 bands come on at one time,
Sure.
And he would say, "No, man, that guy's still my girlfriend. I'm not coming on." So Jim, I love him, man. That guy, he's an amazing cat. So we talk about a guy just into music for love of music. Him and Billy Corgan were such. They were kind of like brothers from another planet.
Really, I didn't even know they got on together. Huh?
Yeah, they got on. People think, but the thing about Jim is that Jim was more of the smart ass in guy. Billy was the outcast.
Really,
Billy was the guy that was. Billy was the artist kid, the quiet guy of the group more than a loudmouth like Jim, who's kind of like the the popular kid in school, and Billy would be like the quiet artist in school, you know.
Sure. Huh.
But they were buddies though. It wasn't like they respect each other, and they both knew that they were not competing with each other because they had different crowds. You know, the power pop crowd was more of a college kids, and the art school kids went to the pumpkin shows.
Yeah, they couldn't be more different. Yeah.
But I can tell you the difference in those shows. Like we got them on video. The Pumpkins kids worshiped. They were in the presence of. They were like in church at a pumpkin show. Like I said, they got real quiet. It got dark. And these guys, you know, the Pumpkins had the most devoted fans. I think to this day they still do. I think that's part of the allure of the Pumpkins. Is like a Pumpkins fan is so devoted. We're like a Material Issue fan and stuff. It was a good time, but
they're into whatever's popular at the time.
At that time, it wasn't like a Pumpkins fan. It was like you know, a deity. But
and what kind of high school student were you? Were you on the radio show? Were you into that already, or was this something that you discovered after that?
Yeah, I did. I collected records in high school, but I didn't do radio until I got into college. Like even after college, friends of mine were doing college radio, so I did WZRD. And the funniest thing about WZRD was that I was doing that, you know, just actually about 10 years ago. I was doing that with a buddy who was doing college radio. So he was going there, so I was able to come in and guest and did a bunch of shows with him. It was amazing. But the funny thing was, someone sent me when I started doing the Pumpkins. When I did the Pumpkins breakup show, we did a 1-hour documentary here when the band broke up called Full Circle. It's on YouTube in 4 parts. It's amazing. It's mostly an interview with Billy and all these.
I saw
snippets.
this.
Yeah. It tells. So I started getting emails and stuff being mailed to me from all over the country, all over the world, the greatest Pumpkin fans. So one thing I got in was when the Pumpkins were on The Wizard on WZRD. So it's a CD, and it's like Now the Smashing Pumpkins, and it's them playing before they got Jimmy. So I played it when I was on The Wizard. I played that track.
Whoa.
And yes. So you never know, at WZRD, you probably got like maybe 1,000 listeners at one time, you know, if you're lucky. So it's just to tune in and like to randomly hear something like that. I'm like, what is this? I mean, you know, the Pumpkins from 1988.
That's super cool, huh?
Yeah, it's very cool.
How about like nowadays? Would there ever be a hunger to get back into it now with like the whole podcasting thing or the streaming video thing? Want to bring back Pulse? Or?
Yeah, definitely. Well, actually, Pulse, there is the PulseChicago.com on YouTube. There's a YouTube channel. There's a bunch of cool stuff on that. And if I do some new things that pop it in there, and there's a bunch of old Pulse era stuff in there.
Cool.
So yeah, you got to go to thepulsechicago.com. If you just do Pulse Chicago, there's like some Christian dating service or something that has the name Pulse Chicago, and they have a million videos on YouTube. So you got to do thepulsechicago.com.
Awesome.
And you'll see a bunch of like Material Issue, a bunch of other stuff. Love and Addiction. Some of them like the lesser known bands of the time that are just amazing.
Sure.
We got some of their stuff on there. We actually got a Daver. Daver was the band Jimmy Chamberlain was in before Pumpkins.
Whoa.
That's on there. It's amazing. Yeah.
That's really awesome. Yeah, that's about all I got for today. Just
awesome.
Want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day and calling in. That was cool.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was a great time. Great talking to you.
So thepulsechicago.com, check them out there. Drop them a line on there. I'm sure you got email on there. Or, if you're recording anything new, it's going to go up on thepulsechicago.com.
Exactly, thepulsechicago.com.
Very cool. Yeah, so, just check out the Pisces Iscariot reissue box and spring for the whole entire deluxe box because you get a reproduction of the demo tape. You get, a full discs of rarities that I'm a huge Pumpkin fan for 15 years, and I heard like one out of the 17 rarities. So a lot of new material on there. Awesome DVD that comes with it, with the old footage from Pulse. And, just want to thank Lou Hinkhouse. Thanks for taking the time out. Really appreciate it from one music fan to another. Any last words?
Thank you,
Lou?
man. I enjoyed it.
All right. Yeah, So on behalf of Lou Hinkhouse, thank you so much for checking out the Andy Dare Show. Be sure to follow Andy on Twitter. That's at Andy Derer, ANDYDERER, and like our show on Facebook. That's facebook.com/The Andy Dare Show. Videos at youtube.com/Andrew Martin Dare. And it all leads back to theandydareshow.com. Support our show by supporting our sponsors: Uncle Bub's award-winning barbecue, The Man Crate, Secondhand Mall, and The Frugal Muse. Thank you so much for listening.